Chapter 1. Akira and Alpha. A young boy walked through the ruins of a vast city with a stern expression. In his surroundings, there were buildings in partial ruins. Fragments of the buildings were scattered all around, and not a single soul was in sight. The sound of the boy's footsteps and the rocks that were crunched under his feet echoed throughout the ruins. Clothes tarnished with filth and lone gun were the only things the boy held. For the boy, this was all he had. However, in a place like this, he was unbelievably ill-equipped. After all, this was the place known as the ruins of the old world. In the ruins, there are autonomous weapons that mindlessly attack their target due to a malfunction. They were machines that were once designed for security, obeying a criteria set by their creators. Abandoned with only an order to kill their targets, these autonomous weapons continue to follow their only order. The autonomous weapons are descendants of biological weapons. Evolved to survive the harsh conditions, they have blurred the lines between machinery and biological, and in the East, they are called monsters. The ruins of the old world was a den to these monsters. Akira understood the danger he was in, as his face was frozen with anticipation. Despite knowing the danger he was in, the allure of the treasures tempted him, or at least objects that could be considered as treasures in the eyes of someone born and raised in the slums. The boy's name was Akira. Akira sighed and murmured to himself, "There's nothing useful here. I risked my life all for this? Do I have to venture deeper into the ruins?" He tilted his head up and looked ahead. In the distance, there were countless of high-rise buildings. Even from afar, he could see the towering buildings still in good condition. That was a stark contrast to the destroyed buildings that stood around Akira. If I managed to get there, would I be able to get my hands on an expensive relic? The possibility of obtaining a vast amount of money appealed to Akira's greed. However, it was nothing but a fantasy. He immediately shook his head and, as if to placate and remind himself, "No, it's impossible. I'll die before I get there." His current surroundings were in ruins, but in the distance, there was a magnificent view. The difference between the two areas is due to the maintenance of the environment. In other words, in the ruins in the distance, there are the remains of advanced maintenance machines from the old world era still in operation. And the possibility of encountering those superior, functional security machines were incredibly high. It was impossible for a child like Akira to even survive in an area highly guarded by those machines. "It's hard for me to even be here. I should stop and not go any further." Akira ignored his greed and continued to search around the area he was in. The area he was in was the outer area of a place called Kusasahara Street Ruins. It was the closest ruins from Kugamana City, the place where Akira lives, and the largest ruins within the city's finance area. The monsters lurking around these ruins were medium weak, and Akira was exploring in a medium safe area. Medium weak is the classification that declares a person who was well prepared could handle the monster. Additionally, medium safe area means there is a higher chance of surviving compared to the ruins in the distance. That being said, it does not mean Akira could let down his guard. Akira was vulnerable due to the lack of proper equipment, as he was just one step away from death, either from the fangs of those mutated creatures or a bullet from those machines. On top of that, the gun he held lacked the power to defeat the monsters. In order to take them down, Akira would have to engage in close combat and shoot at close range. In other words, Akira had no chances of surviving a fight. If he were to fight, it would most certainly end with his death. However, he had no other choice but to enter the ruins. He lacked the money to survive another day. And so his desperation spurred him on to entering Kuzusuhara street ruins. Although he continued to search further, there was nothing. He tilted his head down and sighed. In his line of sight, a bone from a dead body was rolling along on the ground. He had found similar bones in the past, and every time he would search around the corpse in hopes to find something, but he had never found anything. What did I expect? Even the people before me hadn't found anything. Akira thought, feeling melancholy. Either there had been someone who already searched the area before him, or there had been someone reckless as he was, exploring without the proper equipment, only to be greeted with the consequences of their actions. At this rate, the sun will set and it would be impossible to explore the ruins at night, since I don't have any light, and the probability of being attacked by monsters is high. I survived the dangerous ruins, so the experience I gained is what matters, right? So I should go back. If I stubbornly remained here, I'll just join that pile of bones. Akira began to think of excuses that he could use to return. Because he had risked his life to be here, it was hard to accept his defeat. There's no use in being depressed over this. I'll explore a little more, and if I don't find anything, I'll go back. To Akira, returning without any accomplishments meant that his decision of risking his life was meaningless. And so Akira decided to explore for just a bit more. He suddenly stopped as he lifted up his head and saw a girl floating in midair. He froze still. That girl had such a fantasy-like, unreal beauty. Moreover, all of her graceful figure and beautiful body were exposed, without anything to hide them. Her beautiful skin was so different from those from the slums. It was way more lustrous than the skin of those girls living in the upper district of the city who take care of their skins using fortunes, hard work, and technologies from the old world. Her beautiful limbs even rivaled fine art statues and drawings. Her flawless, glossy hair flailed freely down to her waist, and her gallant expression would make anyone fall in love, regardless of age and gender. Akira could only stand there captivated by the beauty of that girl, as if his soul was being sucked out compared to all the girls that he had seen in his still relatively short life, and even if he compared her to all the girls from his imaginations up until now, her beauty was simply peerless. Only with a glance, all the criteria of a beautiful girl inside Akira were all overwritten. The girl was just floating there, doing nothing. She didn't even seem to have noticed Akira. Then a moment later, she gracefully turned her face around to Akira. Akira's eyes met hers. She didn't seem to be bothered that Akira was looking at her naked body as she smiled and stared at Akira. Akira, who was still dumbfounded, slightly reacted to her smile. The girl realized that Akira noticed her, and when she realized it, she giggled merrily as she took a step closer to Akira. Akira quickly put up his guard as he realized that someone he didn't know was approaching him. In an instant, Akira immediately reassessed his current situation. His dumbfounded expression suddenly changed into such a stern look as he pointed his gun at her and shouted, "Don't move!" The girl was a bundle of abnormalities.